All right, today we are going to do our Garfield Market Minute Update. Last week we did Coronados. I'm kind of planning on doing each neighborhood one time a month. So we'll have an update each week specific to each neighborhood, with one of those being kind of an overall of Central Phoenix as a whole. So for this week we're doing Garfield. Garfield, just for your information, I consider to be the area that is south of I-10. It is east of downtown and west of the 51, and then just north of the train tracks. You can call it Jefferson Street, I suppose, but kind of north of that industrial area around downtown. So let's dig into the data. We've got 4 weeks of data here, so we're able to start to begin to see some trends. So excited to be able to share some of this with you. I'm going to do these, like I said earlier, about once a month. So here we go. Number of active homes on the market, we saw just a slight drop over the course of the month after a little bit of a climb. This is not a huge number. Hoping that this trend doesn't continue, or this doesn't become a trend though over the course of the spring. This would be usually an indicator of the end of the spring selling season. If that happens to be the case, and this isn't just a little bit of blip in the data, this would be very early for that trend to begin to start. Hoping that that's not the case, but we will keep an eye on that and see. Coming soon, not a lot of coming soons in Garfield, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that. Pending sales have gone up a little bit. This is not a huge number. They've went basically from 1 to 3 over the course of the month. If that continues in that direction, that's a very good thing. That means that we're starting to see some of the activity from maybe a late spring selling market, as well as maybe potentially rate drop. So if that continues, that's a good thing. We'll keep an eye on that. New listings have dropped a little bit. Again, these are not huge numbers. This has went from 2 to 4 to 1. So if that continues to be a trend, then we have a little bit of cause for concern. Again, that shows an early end to the spring selling market. Normally we start to see this sort of trending in more like in May rather than at the beginning of April, end of March. Not a good sign if that continues to be a trend. Sold in the last 30 days. That's kind of rebounded after a dip about mid-month. Not sure we can glean a lot from this in particular data just yet. We'll keep an eye on it. Sold in the last 6 months. We've seen that dip just a little bit as well. It could be a sign that it was busier last year than it is this year. We'll keep an eye on that data. We're not sure exactly just yet. Average list price current and median. This is just what we're actually listed at this particular time. We're at about the 487,000 mark. Or we were through a good chunk of the month, and we've dropped now to about 460. This is simply a little bit of statistical noise. We had a really inexpensive home close in the neighborhood at about 175,000. That's pretty unusual. That's a fixer-upper. It's a smaller house. Somebody kind of scored a deal there and dragged those numbers down. I wouldn't put too much faith or too much stock in that just yet. Average original list price. I have average and median. You'll see that has also dropped a little bit. Also, now that might be showing that we have some weakening seller confidence. These are the prices that the homes hit the market at. So this might be a sign of one of two things. Either the only people that are confident in selling in general are some of the cheaper listings in the neighborhood, or it might be that one particular house that hit the market. It sold pretty quickly. So that might just be simply a factor of that. Again, we're going to skip over the median there, move to the average price drop. That is increasing a little bit. So this is showing that we're starting to see more price drops and potentially more concessions, kind of a weakening of the market for sellers, or a strengthening of your position if you're a buyer or you're working with buyers out there. So we will keep an eye on that. That's not a huge amount. Obviously, we're still a little bit low with what we were at the beginning of the month. So let's keep an eye on that. That might be a trend of more of a seller's market. Average sales price, again, that was indicative of that closing that we had, that one particularly low closing. So the numbers were dropping a little bit prior to that. We'll keep an eye on that, but I have a feeling that this is just simply noise. Average sales price in the last 6 months, we're seeing that drop a little bit. Again, that's probably from that one sale. Keep an eye on that to see if that goes back up over time. Average close price per square foot, we're seeing that drop as well. Again, I think this is probably just indicative of a little bit of noise. Average days on the market, I think that's just simply, a function of demand. Coronado's a little further along in the curve as far as revitalization goes, and it's a little bit in higher demand. It has dropped a little bit, average days on market. That's a good sign. We hope to see that trend continue. That means that things are maybe strengthening for sellers. That's just the closed ones. Now, we're not seeing quite as strong of a trend on the active and pendings. That means that we've got some sellers in the neighborhood that are kind of hanging on to their price, not wanting to go off the market, but not wanting to drop to a point where they're seeing that activity where they need to get it sold. So there you have it for your Garfield Minute for this month. You can see that we're kind of holding out to see where trends are going. We're starting to see some potentially worrying trends, but we're not quite sure if that's a long-term thing or maybe some noise in the data. More to come. I'll see you next week. We'll be doing the Willow neighborhood. If you're interested in what's going on over there, we'll have some more data for you there.